India's participation in the Asia Cup next year is in doubt after a cricket board official ruled out the team travelling to Pakistan for the tournament. Pakistan says such a move could split international cricket and impact its visit to the 2023 ICC World Cup in India. On the eve of Sunday's opening game between the two sides in the World T20 tournament in Australia, the BBC looks back at how the subcontinental rivals have mostly enjoyed a cordial relationship on field even during a war. Indian legend Sunil Gavaskar remembers the time when his teammates shared a dressing room with their Pakistani counterparts for nearly 4 months even as the South Asian neighbours fought a war in the subcontinent. More than 7,000 kilometres away, in Australia, cricket stars from the subcontinent were part of a rest of the world team which played more than half a dozen games against the hosts. The 9-month war ended in December 1971 with Bangladesh winning independence from Pakistan. In his memoirs, Gavaskar, one of the greatest opening batsmen ever, wrote that there was no tension at all between the Indians and Pakistani players, despite what was happening. Half a dozen players in the 17-member Gary Sobers-led rest of the world team were from the subcontinent. Gavaskar, feisty spin legend Bishen Bedi, and the swashbuckling wicket-keeper batter Farrokh Engineer were the Indians picked up for the squad. Pakistan was represented by the flamboyant batter Zahir Abbas, virtuoso all-rounder Intikhab Alam and pace bowler Asif Masood. Almost every evening we went out for a meal to a restaurant owned by a Pakistani. The owner would hear reports from various radio news bulletins and write them down in Urdu on a paper napkin and give it to Intikhab. Inti would barely glance at it, crumple it up and throw it away, Gavaskar writes in Sunny Days, his 1976 book. On field, fellow international cricketers gently ribbed about the subcontinental rivals. Hilton Ackerman, a South African who opened the batting with Gavaskar, used the situation to imagine some really funny situations. One of them was about Alam and Engineer facing each other with bayonets, myself in a fighter plane, with Asif Masood on my tail, and Bishen and Zahir trying to run away. We had a good laugh, Gavaskar writes. Off-field, there were some worries. Bedi was apparently unhappy with Engineer, telling a local journalist that because his house in Bombay, now Mumbai, faced the sea, he was afraid about the safety of his wife and daughters and that he was going to ask them to go home in Lancashire, where Engineer had a house, Gavaskar writes. And the spinner, who did not talk to reporters, was upset over the war because his hometown Amritsar was close to the Pakistan border. Gavaskar's memories about Indian and Pakistani players sharing a dressing room during the Bangladesh War shows how the fraught relationship between the nuclear-armed rivals, the two have fought 2 wars and a limited conflict over Kashmir never really came in the way of relationships between their cricketers. Pakistan played no international cricket for 5 years after the partition of British India in 1947. It toured India in 1952 when the two sides played their first test match. In a corner of a foreign field, A Sprawling History of Indian Cricket, Ramachandra Guha recounted the tour to illustrate the complex and contradictory relationship of the game with the strained politics of 2 rivals. The back page of Pakistan's Dawn newspaper, once owned by founder of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, hoped that the team would leave a good impression. They are ambassadors of goodwill. Even as the front page had headlines like Bharat, India, augments her army in occupied Kashmir. By all accounts, the tour was a success. Efforts by a fringe radical Hindu group to whip up public support for a boycott of the test in Calcutta, now Kolkata, failed miserably as huge crowds turned up to watch the game. India won the 5-test series 2-1. India and Pakistan have played only 58 test matches over the last 70 years. India and Australia have played 97 test matches in the same period. Many of the early bilateral series between India and Pakistan were insipid affairs, ending in draws, including one in India in 1960-61. As the ties worsened wars in 1965 and 1971, the two sides did not play each other for 17 years until a diplomatic thaw allowed them to resume cricketing ties in 1978 with India visiting Pakistan. Menon says these days social media battles are fought by fans who believe that a win on a cricket field is conclusive proof that one political system or one religion or one nation is superior to the other. One of sport's biggest games and an unique rivalry continues to remain hostage to the tumultuous politics of the subcontinent.